I found out my daughter was having an affair with my brother on a Tuesday afternoon in June. Not from her, not from him, from a text message that appeared on my phone while I was making dinner. A message meant for someone else, sent to me by accident through a group chat glitch. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I love you so much. Tell your mom you're studying at Sarah's again." The message was from my brother, Michael, and it was addressed to my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter, Emma. I stood there in my kitchen with a wooden spoon in my hand, staring at those words on my screen, and my brain simply refused to process what I was reading. There had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding, some reasonable explanation for why my 42-year-old brother was telling my teenage daughter he loved her and instructing her to lie to me. But there wasn't a mistake, because as I stood there frozen, another message came through, this one from Emma. "Love you too. I'll be there by 8. Dad's working late anyway, so Mom won't suspect anything." My husband David, working late, like he did 3 nights a week. The nights Emma claimed to be studying at her friend Sarah's house. The nights my brother Michael said he was busy with projects. How long had this been happening? How long had they been lying to me? How long had I been so blind that I couldn't see what was happening right in front of me? My phone started buzzing with frantic messages as they both realized their mistake. "Mom, that text wasn't what it looked like. I can explain. Lisa, please don't jump to conclusions. Let me come over. We need to talk." But I didn't want to talk. I didn't want explanations. I wanted to wake up from whatever nightmare I'd fallen into. I set down the wooden spoon, turned off the stove, walked out of my kitchen and sat down on the living room couch in the same house where I'd raised Emma since she was born. The house where Michael used to come for Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. The house where we'd been a family. Before everything shattered into 1,000 pieces I didn't know how to put back together. My phone kept buzzing, text after text, call after call, both of them desperate to explain, to justify, to make me understand how this had happened. But there was no explanation that could make this okay, no justification that could undo the betrayal, no understanding that could repair what they'd broken. My daughter and my brother, the 2 people I loved most in the world outside of my husband. And they'd been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back, having an affair that violated every boundary of family, trust, and basic human decency. I thought about Emma as a little girl, sitting on Michael's shoulders at the zoo, laughing as he pretended to be an elephant. I thought about Michael at her high school graduation, tears in his eyes as he told me how proud he was of his niece. I thought about all the times I'd trusted them, all the times I'd believed their lies. And I thought about the confrontation that was coming, the moment when I'd have to look them both in the eye and hear them try to explain the unexplainable, the moment that would tear our family apart forever. That moment came 3 hours later, when Emma walked through the front door expecting to find dinner on the table and her mother unaware. Instead, I found me sitting in the dark living room, her phone records printed out on the coffee table in front of me. Records I'd accessed through our family phone plan. Records showing hundreds of texts and calls between her and Michael over the past 6 months. Records showing late-night conversations that lasted hours. Records that painted a picture I could no longer deny. Emma stopped in the doorway, her face going pale in the dim light. "Mom, I can explain." I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, intelligent daughter who I'd raised to be honest and kind and respectful, and I said the words that would change everything. "Get out of my house." This is the story of how I lost my daughter and my brother in the same night. How a family that seemed unbreakable shattered completely. How secrets and lies destroyed everything I thought I knew about the people I loved. But it's also the story of what happened after, of the choices I had to make, of the truth I had to face about my family, my marriage, and myself. because that text message didn't just reveal an affair, it revealed something much, much worse. I met David Morrison when I was 23 years old. I was working as a receptionist at a dental office, saving money for graduate school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. David came in for a routine cleaning, charming and confident in his business suit, and somehow managed to get my phone number before he left. Our first date was dinner at an Italian restaurant downtown. He made me laugh, made me feel interesting and valuable. By the end of the evening, I knew I wanted to see him again. We were married 18 months later. David was an accountant at a mid-sized firm, steady and reliable. He wasn't flashy or particularly romantic, but he was dependable. He showed up when he said he would. He paid the bills on time. He was the kind of man you could build a life with. And that's what we did. We bought a small house in the suburbs. We talked about starting a family. We made plans for a future that seemed secure and predictable. My brother Michael was my best man at the wedding. Well, technically he was my man of honor, since I didn't have bridesmaids, just Michael standing beside me in his rented tux, holding my bouquet during the vows, and dabbing at his eyes when David and I exchanged rings. Michael and I had always been close. He was 2 years younger than me, and growing up I'd been fiercely protective of him. Our parents had divorced when we were young. Dad left when Michael was 7 and I was 9. And Mom had struggled to raise us alone while working 2 jobs. I'd taken care of Michael through those difficult years, made sure he did his homework, packed his lunches, walked him to school. We'd clung to each other through Mom's exhaustion and Dad's absence, and that bond had lasted into adulthood. When Michael graduated from college with a degree in graphic design, I'd been the one cheering loudest in the audience. When he got his first real job at an advertising agency, I'd taken him out to celebrate. When he went through a bad breakup at 25, he'd slept on my couch for 2 weeks while he put himself back together. We weren't just siblings, we were best friends. So when Emma was born 3 years into my marriage, it was natural that Michael would be a huge part of her life. He was in the delivery room, well, in the waiting room, but he'd wanted to be there. He was the first person, besides David, to hold Emma after she was born. He'd looked down at her tiny face with such wonder and said, "I'm going to be the best uncle in the world." And he was. Michael showed up for everything. First steps, first words, first day of kindergarten. He babysat when David and I needed date nights. He came to every school play and soccer game. He taught Emma to ride a bike, to swim, to draw. He was Uncle Mike, and Emma adored him. "Uncle Mike's here," she'd squeal whenever his car pulled up, running to the door to throw herself into his arms. And he'd scoop her up, spinning her around, making her giggle with delight. David sometimes joked that Emma loved Michael more than she loved him. "She saves all her best smiles for Uncle Mike," he'd say, with a slight edge to his voice. "I'm just the guy who pays for everything." "Don't be ridiculous," I'd tell him. "She loves you. Michael's just fun because he doesn't have to be the disciplinarian." But there was truth in what David said. Emma and Michael had a special bond. They understood each other in a way that seemed almost magical. The same sense of humor, the same creative energy, the same sensitivity to other people's emotions. Michael was the one Emma went to when she was upset, the one she called when she had good news to share, the ones whose opinion mattered most to her after mine and David's. I'd been grateful for that relationship, grateful that my daughter had such a positive male role model beyond her father, grateful that my brother had someone to pour his love into, since he'd never married or had children of his own. It never occurred to me to worry about it. Never occurred to me that there could be anything inappropriate about their closeness. Why would it? He was her uncle, family, safe. The years passed in the comfortable rhythm of family life. Emma grew from a tiny baby into a bright, curious child, then into a teenager, moody and complicated but fundamentally good-hearted. She inherited my dark hair and David's green eyes, and by the time she was 16, she'd grown into a stunningly beautiful young woman. She was smart too. Made honor roll every semester. Got accepted to the state university with a partial scholarship. Planned to study psychology. Said she wanted to help people the way she felt Michael had always helped her understand herself. David and I were proud. Our daughter was everything we'd hoped she'd be. Intelligent, kind, ambitious. We'd done something right. Michael was proud too. At Emma's high school graduation, he pulled me aside with tears streaming down his face. "I can't believe she's all grown up. It feels like yesterday she was this tiny thing in my arms, and now she's going to college. Time goes too fast, Lisa." "I know," I'd said, hugging him. "But you've been such an important part of her life, Michael. She wouldn't be who she is without you." He'd hug me back tight. "I love you, sis. I love your family. You're everything to me." At the time, those words had seemed sweet, touching, evidence of how close our family was. Now, looking back, I wonder if they meant something different, something darker that I was too naive to see. Emma started college that fall, living in the dorms but coming home most weekends. She seemed happy, adjusting well to college life. She'd made friends, joined a few clubs, was doing well in her classes. David and I relaxed. The transition we'd been worried about was going smoothly. But around October, about 2 months into her first semester, I started noticing small changes. Emma was coming home less often. When she did come home, she seemed distracted, distant. She'd spend hours in her room with the door closed, and when I'd ask what she was doing, she'd say homework or talking to friends. She started dressing differently too, more mature, more carefully styled. She wore makeup more often, spent longer getting ready even when she claimed to just be studying at the library. "She's growing up," David said when I mentioned it. "College kids experiment with their identity. It's normal." And I'd believed him because it did seem normal. What college freshman doesn't go through changes? But then there were the nights Emma said she was staying at her friend's house to study. At first, it was once every couple of weeks, then once a week, then 2 or 3 times a week. "Sarah must really need help with her classes," I joked during one of our phone calls. "Yeah, she's really struggling with statistics. I'm helping her out." "That's nice of you, honey. Just make sure you're keeping up with your own work, too." "I am, Mom. I promise." Looking back, I should have questioned it more. Should have wondered why Emma needed to spend so many nights away from her dorm to help a friend. Should have asked to meet this Sarah to verify the story. But I trusted my daughter. Trusted that she was telling me the truth. The same way I trusted my brother. Michael had always been busy with work. He'd moved up to creative director at his advertising agency, which meant long hours and demanding clients. He'd call me a few times a week to check in, but our in-person visits had become less frequent. "Just swamped at work," he'd explain when I asked why he couldn't make it to Sunday dinner. "Big project deadline coming up. I'll come by when things settle down." "You work too hard," I'd tell him. "Don't forget to take care of yourself." "I won't. Love you, sis." "Love you too." Simple conversations, normal conversations, nothing that raised any red flags. Except sometimes when I'd call Michael in the evening, I'd hear music or television in the background that seemed too loud for someone working. And once I could have sworn I heard a female voice saying something before Michael quickly said he had to go. "Was someone there?" I'd asked. "Just the TV," he said. "Look, I really need to finish this project. Can I call you tomorrow?" "Of course, talk to you then." And I'd think nothing of it, because why would I? Michael was my brother. He was allowed to have his own life, his own privacy. If he'd started dating someone, he'd tell me eventually. He always did. Except this time, he didn't tell me, because the person he was seeing wasn't someone he could admit to dating. It was my daughter. "I brought you some pot roast. Can I come in for a minute?" "Actually, this isn't a great time. I'm in the middle of something for work. Can I catch up with you later?" He'd taken the container from my hands and practically closed the door in my face. It had stung a little, but I'd told myself he was just stressed about work. There was the time I'd seen a woman's hair tie on Michael's bathroom counter when I'd used his restroom during a brief visit. A purple scrunchie, the kind Emma liked to wear. Didn't know you were seeing someone, I teased when I came out. Michael had looked uncomfortable. It's new, not really serious. I don't want to talk about it yet. Fair enough. Just glad you're putting yourself out there again. I'd thought the scrunchie belonged to some woman Michael was casually dating. It never occurred to me it might belong to Emma. There was the time Emma had mentioned, almost offhandedly, that she'd run into Uncle Mike at a coffee shop near campus. That's nice, I said. Did you two catch up? Yeah, just for a few minutes. He was meeting a client or something. He works too much. I worry about him. He seems happy though, Mom. Really happy. Like, happier than I've seen him in a long time. At the time, I'd thought maybe Michael had finally found someone special, someone who made him light up the way he used to before years of failed relationships had made him cynical about love. I'd been right. He had found someone special. He just found her in the worst possible place. There were other signs, too. Small things that didn't register as significant until later. The way Emma's eyes would light up when her phone buzzed, then dim when she saw it wasn't who she'd hoped for. The way Michael would sometimes say things like, "Emma mentioned you made that casserole recipe," about dishes I'd made weeks ago, meaning they'd been talking more frequently than I realized. The way both of them had become vague about their schedules, their plans, their lives. They were pulling away from me, creating distance, building a secret world that didn't include me. And I'd let them because I trusted them, because the truth was too horrible to even consider. My husband David noticed less than I did. He was consumed with work. His firm was going through restructuring and he was working 60-hour weeks trying to prove himself indispensable. When he was home, he was tired, distracted, not particularly engaged with the day-to-day details of our family life. "How's Emma doing?" he'd ask over dinner. "Good, busy with school." "And Michael?" "Busy with work." "Good, good." Then he'd go back to his phone or his laptop, and we'd sit in comfortable silence that had become the norm in our marriage. David and I had been married for 22 years. We loved each other, I suppose, in the way long-married couples do, but the passion had faded years ago. We were partners more than lovers, roommates who shared responsibilities and occasionally had sex out of obligation more than desire. Was I happy? I didn't think about it much. Happiness seemed like something you worried about when you were young. Once you reached middle age, once you had a house and a kid and a stable life, you traded happiness for contentment, for security. That's what I told myself anyway. But sometimes, late at night when David was snoring beside me and I couldn't sleep, I'd wonder if this was all there was. If this was what I'd spend the next 40 years doing. Maintaining a house, managing a family, existing alongside a man I'd barely talk to anymore. Then I'd feel guilty for being ungrateful. David was a good man. He provided for us. He'd never been unfaithful or abusive or neglectful. He was just there, steady, reliable, exactly what I'd wanted when I married him. The problem was I'd changed since then, grown in ways I hadn't expected, wanted things I didn't know how to name, but I'd never voiced those feelings, never risked disrupting the stability we'd built, never imagined there might be another way to live, until everything fell apart and I had no choice but to imagine it. The Tuesday the text message came through started like any other day. I'd worked my shift at the hospital. I'd gone back to school when Emma started middle school and become a nurse, finding purpose in helping people through their worst moments. Then I'd come home, changed into comfortable clothes, and started making dinner. Chicken stir-fry, Emma's favorite. She was supposed to come home from campus tonight instead of staying in the dorms. We'd planned to have dinner together, just the two of us, while David worked late. Mother-daughter time that had become increasingly rare. I was looking forward to it, to hearing about her classes, her friends, her life, to reconnecting with my daughter who had seemed so distant lately. I was chopping vegetables when my phone buzzed with the text message that changed everything. And suddenly, all those small signs I'd dismissed made sense. The distance, the lies, the secret smiles and vague explanations. My daughter and my brother were having an affair that had probably been going on for months, maybe longer. An affair that meant everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. I stood in my kitchen with the knife in my hand and the chicken sizzling in the pan, and I felt my entire world collapse. I couldn't move for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The stir-fry continued cooking on the stove, the vegetables starting to burn. The acrid smell filled the kitchen, but I didn't care. I just stood there staring at my phone as more messages poured in. "Mom, please answer your phone. It's not what you think. Lisa, I'm coming over. Don't do anything until we talk. Mom, I'm so sorry. Please just let me explain. I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe that." The messages blurred together, both of them desperate, frantic, begging me to listen. But what could they possibly say that would make this okay? My brother, my baby brother who I'd practically raised, was sleeping with my daughter, my 19-year-old daughter, his niece. The age difference alone was stomach-turning. 23 years. He was 42, old enough to be her father, old enough to know better, old enough to understand exactly how wrong this was. But it was so much worse than just age. This wasn't some random older man taking advantage of a naive teenager. This was family. This was someone she'd known and trusted her entire life. Someone who'd held her as a baby, taught her to ride a bike, been at every birthday party and school event. Someone who'd groomed her. David pulled away from me, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "He's been molesting our daughter, Lisa. Molesting her. How can you be so calm about this?" "I'm not calm," my voice cracked. "I'm furious. I'm devastated. I'm so many things, I can't even name them all. But violence isn't going to fix this." "Then what will? What the hell are we supposed to do?" Before I could answer, we heard a car pull up outside, then footsteps on the front walkway, then a key in the lock. Emma came through the door, her face blotchy from crying, her eyes red and swollen. She stopped when she saw both of us standing there in the living room. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice was small, scared. "Get out," I said. The same words I'd thought earlier, now spoken aloud. "Get out of my house." "Mom, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" David's voice was sharp. "Explain how you've been sleeping with your uncle? Explain how you've been lying to us for months? There's nothing to explain, Emma. You've destroyed this family." "Dad, you don't understand. Michael and I, we're in love. This isn't some sordid affair. This is real." The words "in love" coming out of her mouth made something in me snap. I crossed the room and slapped her. I'd never hit my daughter in her life, never believed in physical punishment. But in that moment, I couldn't stop myself. My hand connected with her cheek with a sharp crack that echoed in the sudden silence. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her face. "Mom!" "Don't." I was shaking all over now. "Don't say another word. You're in love? You're 19, Emma. You're a child. And he's your uncle. Your uncle. The man who held you when you were a baby, who changed your diapers, who tucked you in at night when you had nightmares. And you think you're in love with him?" "I'm not a child anymore," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm an adult. I can make my own choices." "You're making a choice that will destroy your life," David said. "Don't you see that? This isn't love, Emma. This is manipulation. Michael has been grooming you." "He hasn't been grooming me," Emma's voice rose. "Why does everyone always assume the woman has no agency? I wanted this. I pursued him as much as he pursued me. I love him, and he loves me, and I don't care if you approve or not." You pursued him?" I felt like I might be sick again. "Emma, he's known you since you were born. He's been in your life every single day. Of course you think you pursued him. That's what grooming is. He made you think this was your idea when really he's been shaping your perception of him for years." "That's not true." "It is true," I said. "Read the messages, Emma. Read them objectively. He encouraged your romantic dreams. He told you that you had a soul connection. He made you feel special and understood and like this was destiny. That's not love. That's manipulation." "You don't know what you're talking about," Emma said stubbornly. "You've never understood me. You've never seen me the way Michael sees me. He makes me feel valued and important and—" "I'm your mother," I shouted. "I valued you and seen you your entire life. But apparently that wasn't enough. Apparently you needed validation from a middle-aged man who should have known better than to touch his own niece." Emma was crying harder now. "I knew you wouldn't understand. I knew you'd make this about you, but it's not about you, Mom. It's about me and Michael and what we have together." "Where is he?" David asked suddenly. "Is he coming here?" Emma hesitated, which was answer enough. "He's coming here," David said. "He's coming to try to explain this to us." "He wants to talk to you both," Emma admitted. "He wants to make you understand." "There's nothing to understand," David interrupted, "except that he's a predator who took advantage of his own niece. And when he gets here, I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what I think of him." "Dad, please don't hurt him." "Don't hurt him?" David laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. "Emma, he hurt you. He hurt all of us. And you're worried about him?" "I love him." "Stop saying that you love him like that. That makes this okay. You're 19 years old. You don't know what love is. You especially don't know what healthy love is. If you think this," I gestured wildly, "is acceptable." "I know more than you think," Emma shot back. "I know that Michael listens to me, really listens. I know that he doesn't just tolerate my presence the way Dad does. I know that he doesn't look at me with disappointment the way you do." "Disappointment?" I was stunned. "Emma, I have never been disappointed in you." "Yes, you have. Every time I don't live up to your perfect standards, every time I make a choice you wouldn't make. You judge me constantly, Mom, but Michael doesn't judge me. He accepts me exactly as I am. Because he wants to sleep with you." The words came out harsher than I intended. "Of course he accepts everything you do. He's not your parent trying to guide you. He's a predator trying to keep you compliant. Stop calling him that." We were screaming at each other now, all the careful politeness and boundaries of our mother-daughter relationship stripped away. David stood between us, looking helpless, like he wanted to physically separate us but didn't know how. That's when we heard another car pull up, another door slam, footsteps on the walk. Michael. He knocked on the door, actually knocked like he didn't have a key, like he hadn't been part of this family for 40 years. David moved toward the door, his jaw clenched. I grabbed his arm again. "Let me," I said. "He's my brother. This is my conversation." David looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. "I'll be right here. If he says one thing, just one thing that I don't like, I'm stepping in." I walked to the door and opened it. Michael stood on my doorstep looking wrecked, his hair disheveled, his shirt rumpled, his eyes red like he had been crying. He looked younger than 42 in that moment, vulnerable, like the little brother I'd protected and cared for my whole life. Then I remembered what he'd done, and any sympathy I felt evaporated. "Lisa," he said, "thank God, we need to talk. I need to explain." "Explain what?" I kept my voice cold. "Explain how you've been sleeping with your niece? Explain how you groomed my daughter from the time she was a child? Explain how you violated every trust and boundary that exists within a family?" "It's not like that," Michael said desperately. "Please, just let me come in. Let me explain what really happened." "No," I blocked the doorway. "You don't get to come into my house anymore. You don't get to be part of this family anymore. You're done, Michael. We're done." "Lisa, please, you're my sister. You've always been on my side. You've always understood me." "I don't understand this. I will never understand this. Just listen to me for 5 minutes. That's all I ask. 5 minutes to explain." Behind me, Emma spoke up. "Mom, please, just hear him out." I turned to look at my daughter, at the desperate hope on her face, at the absolute conviction that if we just listened, we'd understand that this was somehow okay. And I realized that I had to let Michael speak, not for his sake, but so Emma could hear his excuses with fresh ears, so she could hear him try to justify the unjustifiable.
"Go," I said. "Just go." And they did. They walked out of my house together, got into Michael's car, and drove away. I stood there in the doorway, watching the taillights disappear down the street, and felt everything inside me shatter. My daughter was gone. My brother was gone. My family was destroyed. and I didn't know if any of it could ever be repaired. The house felt different after they left. Empty. Haunted. Like all the life had been sucked out of it, along with Emma and Michael. David and I stood in the living room for a long time, neither of us speaking. The silence was thick, suffocating. Finally, David moved to the couch and sat down heavily, his head in his hands. "What did we just do?" he asked quietly. "We set a boundary," I said, though my voice was shaking. "We told her that her choices have consequences." "We pushed our daughter out of our home, Lisa. We told her never to come back." "What were we supposed to do? Welcome them with open arms? Pretend this is normal? Have them over for Sunday dinner like nothing's wrong?" David looked up at me and I saw tears on his face. In 22 years of marriage, I'd seen my husband cry maybe 3 times. "She's our daughter, our only child, and we just let her walk out." "She chose to walk out," I corrected. "She chose him over us. Because we made her choose. We gave her an ultimatum. Maybe if we'd been calmer, more willing to listen." "Listen to what?" I snapped. "Listen to Michael explain how grooming our daughter is actually beautiful and romantic? There's nothing to listen to, David. This is cut and dry. What they're doing is wrong, and we can't support it." "But cutting her out of our lives completely? Lisa, that's extreme. She's 19. She's making a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. But don't we have a responsibility to keep trying to reach her? To keep the door open so she can come back when she realizes the truth?" "The door is open," I said. "She just has to leave Michael to walk through it." David shook his head. "You don't understand what you're doing, Lisa. If we completely cut her off, we lose all influence. We can't help her if she won't talk to us. And Michael, that son of a bitch, will have complete control over her. Is that what you want?" I sat down beside him, suddenly exhausted. I don't know what I want. I don't know what the right answer is. All I know is that I can't sit across from them at dinner and pretend this is okay. I can't watch them hold hands and kiss and act like they're a normal couple. I can't enable this. "No one's asking you to enable it," David said, "but there's a difference between enabling and completely abandoning your child." "I'm not abandoning her. I'm protecting her." "How? By pushing her further into his arms? Because that's what's going to happen, Lisa. She's going to cling to him even harder now. He's going to use our rejection to convince her that we never really loved her, that he's the only one who understands her. We're playing right into his hands." The truth of David's words hit me like cold water. He was right. Everything we'd just done, kicking them out, giving ultimatums, cutting Emma off financially, would only strengthen Michael's hold on her. I'd been so focused on punishing them, on making my disgust and rage clear, that I hadn't thought about strategy, about the long game. "So what should we have done?" I asked. Smiled and nodded? Told them we need time to process? Let them keep lying to us while we figure out how to respond? Maybe. Or maybe we should have separated them. Talk to Emma alone without Michael there manipulating the conversation. Maybe we should have been smarter about this. I wanted to argue, but I couldn't, because David was right. I heard my mother start to cry. "My baby, my poor baby, what has he done?" For the first time since this nightmare began,
Someone was focusing on the right thing. Not on whether Emma was technically an adult or whether the relationship was consensual, but on what Michael had done. The choice he'd made, the harm he'd caused. "I don't know how to fix this, Mom," I said, my own tears starting again. "I don't know how to help Emma, and I don't know how to forgive Michael for what he's done." "You can't forgive him," Mom said firmly. "What he's done is unforgivable. That's his niece, his brother's daughter. He's destroyed the family." It was oddly comforting to hear my mother's certainty, to know that at least one other person saw this situation as clearly as I did. "Have you talked to him?" Mom asked. "Not since the night we kicked them out." "I need to talk to him. I need to hear him explain this to me." "Mom, he'll try to manipulate you. He'll use all the same romantic language he used on Emma. He'll try to make it sound beautiful and destined and let him try," Mom said, steel in her voice. "I raised that boy. I know him better than he thinks I do, and I'm going to tell him exactly what I think of what he's done." After we hung up, I felt marginally better. At least I wasn't alone in this. At least someone else in the family understood the gravity of what had happened. But the relief was short-lived, because 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. "Mrs. Morrison?" A woman's voice I didn't recognize. "Yes? This is Detective Amanda Garcia with the County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling about a complaint that's been filed against you and your husband, a restraining order request, actually." My blood ran cold. "A restraining order?" "Yes, ma'am. Your daughter, Emma Morrison, and Michael Brennan have filed for a temporary restraining order claiming harassment and threatening behavior. I need to ask you some questions about your interactions with them over the past few weeks." I couldn't speak, couldn't process what I was hearing. Emma had filed a restraining order against us, against her own parents. "Mrs. Morrison, are you still there?" "Yes," I managed. "I'm here." "Can you tell me about the events of June 16th, the day your daughter claims you physically assaulted her?" The slap. Emma was claiming I'd slapped her because I'd slapped her once in a moment of rage. Yes, I slapped her. Once. I shouldn't have done it. I was just so..." "And your husband, David Morrison? Did he make verbal threats toward Mr. Brennan?" I thought back to David saying he wanted to kill Michael, to beat him within an inch of his life. He was upset. We'd just found out about the relationship. He said things in anger. "What kinds of things?" "That he wanted to hurt Michael. But he didn't actually do anything. It was just words." "Have you or your husband attempted to contact Ms. Morrison or Mr. Brennan since that date?" "I've sent Emma text messages, called a few times, just to let her know I love her, that I'm here if she needs me." "How many messages would you estimate?" "I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, over the course of 2 weeks." "And Mr. Brennan?" "I called him once. He didn't answer." Detective Garcia was quiet for a moment, and I could hear her typing. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm going to be honest with you. Based on what I'm hearing, I don't think this restraining order is going to be granted. You're allowed to contact your daughter, especially to express concern and love. And your husband's statements, while heated, were made in the context of a family crisis and don't constitute actual threats. However, I would advise you to cease contact for now. Let things cool down." "But our therapist said..." "I understand, but legally, continuing to contact them while there's a restraining order request pending could complicate things. Give it a few weeks. Let the legal process play out. Then you can reassess." After she hung up, I called David at work. "They filed a restraining order," I said when he answered. "Emma and Michael. They're claiming we're harassing them." "Jesus Christ," David breathed. "Are you serious?" "The detective doesn't think it'll be granted." "But David, This is what he's doing. He's isolating her, cutting her off from us completely, and she's letting him." "Or she's scared," David said. "Maybe she's starting to realize something's wrong, and he's panicking, controlling the narrative before she can come to us." I hadn't thought of it that way, but David might be right. What do we do? We wait. We let the restraining order request get denied, and then we try again to reach Emma, but smarter this time, more strategic. That night, David and I sat down and made a plan. We would stop all direct contact for now, but we would find ways to let Emma know we were thinking of her. Birthday cards sent to her dorm address, flowers delivered to her workplace. She had a part-time job at a campus bookstore. Small gestures that couldn't be construed as harassment, but would remind her that we were there. And we would document everything. Every interaction with Michael, every message Emma sent or didn't send, every piece of evidence that might be useful if this situation ever ended up in court. And we would wait. Wait for Emma to realize the truth. Wait for cracks to appear in her relationship with Michael. Wait for the moment when she'd be ready to hear us. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months with no word from Emma, I started to lose hope. Maybe this would have to be forever. Maybe Emma would spend the rest of her life with Michael, and I'd spend the rest of mine grieving the daughter I'd lost. Then 4 months after the confrontation, I got a call that changed everything. It was 2 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, jarring me from restless sleep. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello?" My voice was groggy. "Emma?" Small, scared, crying. "Emma."
What's happening? It's Emma. She called. She needs us to pick her up. She's coming home. David was up and dressed in seconds. We were in the car and driving before I'd even processed what was happening. Emma was coming home. She'd left Michael. Or something had happened that made her finally reach out to us. The drive to the gas station took 30 minutes. Longest 30 minutes of my life. When we pulled into the parking lot, I saw her immediately. Sitting on the curb outside the convenience store, her arms wrapped around herself, looking small and young and terrified. I was out of the car before David had even fully stopped. "Emma!" She looked up, and when she saw me, her face crumpled. "Mom!" I pulled her into my arms, and she collapsed against me sobbing. Her whole body was shaking. She was so thin. Had she lost weight? And there was a bruise on her arm, dark purple against her pale skin. "What happened?" I asked, pulling back to look at her. "Did he hurt you? Did Michael hurt you?" Emma nodded, still crying too hard to speak. David had come up behind us, his face a mask of controlled rage. "Get in the car," he said quietly. "We'll talk at home. Right now, we just need to get you somewhere safe." We drove home in silence. Emma sat in the back seat, staring out the window, tears still streaming down her face. I kept turning around to look at her, to reassure myself that she was really there, really safe. When we got home, I made Emma tea and wrapped her in a blanket on the couch. She looked so fragile, so broken. Nothing like the defiant girl who'd walked out 4 months ago, insisting she was in love. "Tell us what happened," I said gently. Emma took a shaky breath. "I don't even know where to start." "Start anywhere," David said. "We're listening." And finally, Emma began to talk. Emma's hands trembled around the mug of tea as she started to speak. "It was good at first," she said quietly, her voice hoarse from crying. "After I moved in with him, everything felt perfect, like we were finally free to be together without hiding. Michael was so attentive, so loving. He'd cook for me, buy me things, tell me how much he loved me every single day." She paused, staring into her tea. "But then little things started to change. He didn't want me going back to campus as much, said I should take online classes so we could spend more time together. He'd get upset when I wanted to hang out with friends, said they didn't understand our relationship, that they'd try to turn me against him. David and I exchanged glances but didn't interrupt. We needed to hear all of it. I dropped most of my classes, Emma continued. Told myself it was just for one semester, that I'd go back full-time once things settled down. But Michael kept finding reasons why I shouldn't. The campus was too far, my friends were bad influences, I needed to focus on us, on our relationship. He was isolating you, I said softly. Emma nodded. I didn't see it at the time. I thought he just loved me so much he wanted to be with me constantly. I thought it was romantic. But then he started checking my phone, reading my messages, questioning me about every text, every call. If I didn't respond immediately when he messaged me, he'd accuse me of hiding something. Did you try to leave? David asked. I thought about it, but I didn't have anywhere to go. I'd burned bridges with you guys, with my friends, and Michael kept telling me that no one else would understand our love, that if I left, I'd be proving everyone right about us, that I'd be giving up on something special. She set down the tea with shaking hands. And then the physical stuff started. I felt my blood run cold. You hit you? Not at first. At first it was just grabbing my arm too hard when he was upset, pushing me when we argued. He'd always apologize afterwards, say he didn't know his own strength, say he was just so passionate about me that sometimes his emotions overwhelmed him. That's what abusers always say, David said, his voice tight. I know that now, but in the moment I believed him. I wanted to believe him, because if I admitted that Michael was abusing me, that meant admitting I'd made a huge mistake, that you guys were right, that I destroyed my family for a man who never really loved me at all. I moved to sit beside her on the couch, pulling her close. She leaned into me the way she used to when she was little. Tonight, Emma continued after a moment, we got into a fight. I'd gotten a message from Sarah, my friend from my dorm. She said she missed me, asked if I wanted to grab coffee tomorrow, and I said yes without asking Michael first. When he saw the text, he lost it. She pulled up her sleeve to show us the bruise I had noticed earlier. It was in the shape of a hand, Michael's hand. He grabbed me and shook me, told me I was being selfish, that I was trying to leave him, that after everything he sacrificed for me, his relationship with you, Mom, his relationship with the whole family, I was going to abandon him. You didn't ask him to sacrifice anything, I said firmly. He made the choice to pursue you. That's on him, not you. He doesn't see it that way. In his mind, we made this choice together, and now I owe him. I owe him my loyalty, my obedience, my entire life. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes. Mom, I was so stupid. You tried to tell me. You said he was manipulating me, but I wouldn't listen. I was so sure I knew better. You're 19 years old, David said. You're supposed to think you know better than your parents. That's normal. What's not normal is a grown man taking advantage of that. When he grabbed me tonight, something in me just snapped. I saw him clearly for the first time in months, saw the anger in his eyes, saw how much bigger and stronger than I was, saw that I was trapped in his apartment with someone who could hurt me and no one would know. How did you get away? I asked. He let go of me eventually, went into the bedroom and slammed the door, and I grabbed my phone and my purse and I ran. Didn't even take any of my things. I was afraid he'd come after me, so I ran to the main road and called an Uber to that gas station. Then I called you. She looked at me with such vulnerability. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I said to you, for choosing him over you, for letting him turn me against my own family. You were right about everything, and I was too stubborn to see it. Shh, I said, hugging her tighter. You don't need to apologize. You're here now. That's what matters. But I do need to apologize. I was so cruel to you. I said terrible things. You were being manipulated by someone you trusted, someone who'd been in your life since you were born. That's not your fault, Emma. None of this is your fault. She cried harder, and I held her while she sobbed out months of fear and confusion and pain. David excused himself quietly. I heard him in the kitchen, probably calling someone. A few minutes later, he came back. I called the police. They're sending someone to take a statement. And I called Dr. Reeves, the therapist your mom and I have been seeing. She has emergency hours and can see you tomorrow if you want. Emma nodded against my shoulder. Okay.
We're also going to Michael's apartment with a police escort to get your things, David continued. You don't have to go. I can handle it. But if there's anything important you need, make me a list. My laptop? Emma said. My clothes? My books? There's a jewelry box on the dresser. It has the necklace Grandma gave me before she died. I want that. I'll get everything, David promised. 2 police officers arrived about 20 minutes later. They were gentle with Emma, asking questions about the assault, photographing the bruise on her arm, taking detailed notes about her relationship with Michael and how long the abuse had been going on. Do you want to press charges? One of the officers asked. Emma hesitated, looking at me. It's your decision, sweetheart, I said. Whatever you choose, we'll support you. Will I have to see him? Emma asked. In court or anything? Potentially, the officer said. But we can get you a restraining order in the meantime. He won't be able to come near you or contact you. Emma took a shaky breath. Okay, yes, I want to press charges, and I want the restraining order. That's very brave, the officer said. We'll start the paperwork tonight. After the police left, David went to get Emma's things with a patrol car following him. I stayed with Emma, helping her take a shower and finding some of her old clothes in her closet. Everything still fit. She'd lost weight, but not enough to change sizes. When she emerged from the bathroom in her old pajamas, she looked more like herself, younger, less haunted. Can I sleep in my old room? She asked tentatively. Just for tonight? You can sleep in your old room for as long as you need, I said. This is your home, Emma. It's always been your home. I tucked her into bed like I used to when she was little. She looked up at me with exhausted eyes. Mom, will things ever be normal again? I don't know, I admitted. This is going to be hard. Recovery is going to be hard. But you're strong, Emma, and you're not alone. We're going to get through this together. What about Uncle Mike? What's going to happen to him? The question caught me off guard. Despite everything he'd done, Emma still called him Uncle Mike, still saw him through the lens of their old relationship. I don't know, I said honestly. That depends on a lot of things. The police investigation, whether he's charged with assault, whether other things come to light about how he groomed you. I keep thinking about when I was younger, about all the time we spent together, and I'm trying to figure out if there were signs, if he was grooming me back then, or if this really did just start when I went to college. Does it matter? I asked gently. I guess not. Either way, he took advantage of me. Either way, he destroyed our family. She paused. I just keep thinking, if he'd been grooming me since childhood, that would almost make more sense, because then I'd know I never really had a choice. But if it started when I was in college, that means I did make choices. I chose to flirt with him. I chose to tell him I had feelings for him. I chose to sleep with him that first time. Emma, even if you made those choices, he was still the adult. He was still the one with power and authority in the relationship. He could have, should have, shut it down immediately. Instead, he encouraged it. That's on him. I know. Logically, I know that. But emotionally, she trailed off. I feel so stupid, Mom. So ashamed. You have nothing to be ashamed of, I said firmly. Michael is the one who should be ashamed. Michael is the one who broke every rule of family and decency, not you. She nodded, but I could tell she didn't fully believe me yet. That would take time. David came back around 3 a.m. with several boxes of Emma's belongings. He set them quietly in her room, then kissed her forehead. Sleep. We'll deal with everything else tomorrow. The next few days were a blur of activity. Emma went to therapy,
first with Dr. Reeves individually, then in a joint session with David and me to start rebuilding our family relationships. The police investigation into Michael's assault moved forward. He was arrested and charged with domestic violence. His bail was set high enough that he couldn't immediately pay it, which meant he stayed in jail, at least temporarily. Emma got a temporary restraining order that prohibited Michael from coming within 500 feet of her or contacting her in any way. And slowly, painfully, Emma started to heal. She enrolled in online classes to finish the semester she'd abandoned. She started eating regularly again, gaining back some of the weight she'd lost. The haunted look in her eyes began to fade, replaced with something that looked almost like peace. She all the surface to who he really was. And I believed it because I wanted to feel special. I wanted to feel chosen. "That's not wrong," I said gently. "Everyone wants to feel seen and valued. Michael just twisted that natural desire into something unhealthy." He told me that our relationship was like nothing else in the world, that most people would never experience a connection as deep as ours, that we were soulmates who'd found each other despite impossible odds. "He told you a story," I said, "a romantic story where you were the heroine and he was the misunderstood hero and everyone else was trying to keep you apart. It's a powerful story. It's the kind of story young women are taught to believe in through movies and books and music." "But it was a lie," Emma said bitterly. "Not entirely," I corrected gently. "I think Michael probably believed some of it. I think he convinced himself that what he felt for you was love. But even if he believed it, that doesn't make it true, and it doesn't make what he did okay." Emma was quiet for a moment, folding one of her shirts. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "Did I ruin your relationship with Uncle Mike forever? Like, even if he goes to jail and I never see him again, will you ever be able to forgive him? Or did I destroy that by sleeping with him?" My heart broke at the question, at the guilt Emma was still carrying.
Emma, listen to me very carefully. You didn't destroy my relationship with Michael. He did. By choosing to pursue you sexually, by manipulating you, by abusing you. Those were his choices, not yours. I'm angry at him, not at you. And whatever happens going forward, that's between Michael and me. You don't carry that responsibility. But if I hadn't— No, I interrupted firmly. No what-ifs. You were a teenager exploring your feelings. He was a grown man who should have maintained appropriate boundaries. The blame is entirely on him. Emma nodded, but I could see her struggling to accept it. In therapy, Dr. Reeves helped us work through the complicated emotions we were all feeling. She helped Emma understand that being groomed doesn't mean you're stupid or weak. She helped David and me understand how to support Emma without infantilizing her or making her feel like she had no agency in her own recovery. Emma made choices within the context Michael created, Dr. Reeves explained during one of our joint sessions. She can acknowledge her choices while also recognizing that the context was manipulated. Both things are true. It was a helpful framework. It allowed Emma to take ownership of her recovery without drowning in shame about what had happened. We also had to deal with the practical fallout. My mother called almost daily, devastated about Michael, but supportive of Emma. "I never would have thought my own son could do something like this," she said over and over. "I raised him better than this." "It's not your fault, Mom," I told her. "You didn't make him do this." "I know. But I keep wondering if there were signs, if I missed something when he was growing up." Other family members had mixed reactions. Some were supportive. Others didn't want to believe that Michael could do something so terrible and suggested that maybe Emma had seduced him. Maybe she was exaggerating the abuse. Maybe this was all a misunderstanding. Those were the relationships I cut off immediately. Anyone who blamed Emma or defended Michael's actions was no longer welcome in our lives. Emma struggled with the public nature of what had happened. Word got around our small community. There's no such thing as privacy in towns where everyone knows everyone. People stared at her in grocery stores, whispered when she walked by, some with sympathy, some with judgment. "I feel like I'm wearing a sign that says, 'I slept with my uncle,'" Emma said one day, crying in frustration. "Everywhere I go, that's all people see." "Then maybe we should move," David said. Emma looked up, surprised. "What?" "Move. To a different town. Start fresh somewhere people don't know our story. You could transfer to a different university, we could sell the house, buy something new, leave all of this behind." "Would you really do that? Leave your job, your life here, everything, just for me?" "In a heartbeat," David said. "You're our daughter. Your well-being matters more than any job or house." Emma started crying again, but this time with something like relief. "I think I'd like that, a fresh start. Somewhere I can just be Emma, not the girl who slept with her uncle." So we made plans to move. David started looking for accounting positions in other cities. I applied to nursing jobs in different hospitals. Emma researched universities with good psychology programs. It felt right, like we were taking control of our story instead of letting it control us. Michael's trial was set for 6 months out. The prosecutor explained that the domestic violence charge was solid. They had photographic evidence of the bruise, Emma's testimony, and medical records documenting her physical and emotional state when she'd been examined after leaving him. But they wanted to pursue additional charges related to the grooming. That was harder to prove. They'd need to demonstrate that Michael had used his position of trust and authority to manipulate Emma into a sexual relationship. "We have the text messages," the prosecutor said during one of our meetings. "They show a clear pattern of grooming behavior, but Michael's lawyer will argue that Emma was a legal adult, that the relationship was consensual, that there's no law against an uncle and adult niece having a relationship." "What about the abuse?" I asked. "The isolation, the control?" That supports the grooming narrative, but it also complicates things because Emma stayed for several months after the relationship became physical. His lawyer will use that to argue that she wasn't coerced. "So he might get away with it," David said flatly. "He won't get away with the domestic violence charge," the prosecutor assured us. "That's solid. But whether we can prove grooming to the extent that would warrant additional charges, that's less certain." Emma was quiet during this meeting, her face pale. Afterwards in the car, she finally spoke. "Maybe I shouldn't testify. Maybe I should just drop the charges." "Why?" I asked, alarmed. "Because his lawyer is going to tear me apart. They're going to make me look stupid. They're going to twist everything to make it seem like I seduced him, like this was all my idea, and I don't know if I can handle that." "You don't have to decide right now," David said. "We have months before trial. Take your time. Think about it. Talk to Dr. Reeves. Make whatever decision feels right for you." Over the next few months, Emma worked with Dr. Reeves to prepare for the possibility of testifying. They practiced answering difficult questions. They worked on strategies for staying calm under cross-examination. They discussed what it would mean for Emma's recovery if she testified versus if she didn't. "I think I need to do it," Emma finally decided. "Not for revenge or to punish Michael, but for me, to stand up and say what happened, to not let him silence me the way he silenced me when we were together." "Are you sure?" I asked. "No," she admitted. "I'm terrified, but I think I need to do it anyway." We moved 2 months before the trial to a town 3 hours away, a place where no one knew our story. Emma enrolled at a new university. David started a new job. I began working at a different hospital. It was strange starting over, but also liberating. In our new town, we were just a normal family. Emma was just a college student. No one stared or whispered or knew our secrets. The trial happened in early spring, almost a year after the night I'd found that accidental text message. We drove back to our old town for the proceedings. Emma testified for nearly 3 hours, describing the progression of her relationship with Michael, the manipulation, the isolation, the abuse. She was calm and articulate despite her fear. Michael's lawyer tried to paint her as a seducer who had pursued her uncle and was now regretting it. He pointed out that she was 19, legally an adult. that she said "I love you" first in the text messages, that she'd stayed with Michael for months after their relationship became physical. But the prosecutor countered with expert testimony about grooming and trauma bonds, with evidence of Michael's controlling behavior, with the photographic proof of the bruise he had left on Emma's arm. In the end, the jury found Michael guilty of domestic violence. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years probation. They didn't convict him for the grooming charges. Not enough evidence, the jury foreman later explained. But the domestic violence conviction was something. Emma cried when the verdict was read, not from relief or joy, but from the weight of it all. It was over. The trial was done. Michael was going to prison. "How do you feel?" I asked her outside the courthouse.
I don't know, she said honestly. I thought I'd feel happy or vindicated or something, but I just feel sad. Sad that it happened. Sad that our family fell apart. Sad that someone I loved turned out to be someone who could hurt me. That's okay, I said. You're allowed to feel sad about it. Even though he deserves to be punished? Even though you can hold both truths at once, that he deserved consequences and that you're sad about how things turned out. Grief isn't logical. We drove back to our new town that evening, back to our new life, away from the courthouse and the memories and the family we used to be. 2 years have passed since the trial. I'm sitting on the back porch of our new house, watching the sun set over the garden I've been cultivating. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers that attract butterflies. It's peaceful here, quiet in a way our old house never was. Emma is inside studying for her midterms. She's a junior now at the new university, majoring in psychology with a focus on trauma and recovery. She wants to work with survivors of abuse someday, help other people the way she's been helped. She's doing well. Not perfect. Recovery isn't linear, and there are still hard days. Days when she struggles with shame or anger or grief for the family we used to be. But more often than not, she's okay. She has friends. She's dating someone, a gentle, kind young man her own age who treats her with respect. She's building a life. David comes out onto the porch with 2 glasses of wine. He hands me one and sits beside me, and we watch the sunset together in comfortable silence. Our marriage has changed through all of this. At first, the crisis brought us together, united in our determination to help Emma. But once the immediate danger passed, we had to reckon with what our marriage had become before the crisis. The distance, the routine, the comfortable dissatisfaction. We went to couples therapy, had hard conversations about what we wanted from the next phase of our lives, and we made a choice to really try. Not just to stay together out of habit or obligation, but to build something better. It's working, slowly. We talk more now, make time for each other, touch casually in ways we hadn't in years. It's not the passionate romance of newlyweds, but it's something deeper. Partnership, genuine affection, a marriage built on choice rather than momentum. Emma told me she got a letter today from Michael. My stomach tightens. What? He's up for parole next month. He wrote asking if she'd support his release. Said he's changed, that he understands what he did wrong, that he's sorry and wants to make amends. Michael has written before from prison. At first, the letters were frequent, desperate attempts to explain himself, to justify his actions, to paint himself as the victim of a misunderstanding. Emma read the first few, then asked us to screen them. Most we threw away unopened. But this one is different. This one has power, the power to potentially get him released early. What did she say? I asked. She said no. She's writing to the parole board to oppose his release. She doesn't think 2 years is enough time for what he did. Good. I said firmly. Then softer, how's she handling it? Better than I expected. She's angry, but it's a healthy anger. She's not doubting herself or feeling guilty. She just thinks he should serve his full sentence. I nodded, relieved. There was a time when a letter from Michael would have sent Emma spiraling. But she's stronger now, more certain of herself. Have you heard from him? David asked carefully. No. I told the prison to flag me as no contact. I don't want his letters. I don't want his explanations or apologies or whatever else he thinks he needs to say to me. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? It's a question David has asked before, when I've asked myself countless times. I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to. He's my brother. We grew up together. We loved each other. But every time I think about what he did to Emma, my voice catches. I can't forgive it. Maybe someday, but not yet. You don't have to, David said gently. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. You're allowed to stay angry. Are you still angry? Every single day, he admits. But I'm also grateful. For what? That Emma got out. That she called us instead of staying with him. That we have a chance to rebuild our relationship with her. It could have gone so much worse. He's right. Emma could have stayed with Michael for years, becoming more and more isolated, more damaged. She could have cut us off completely. She could have never realized the truth about what was happening to her. Instead, she'd found the courage to leave, to come home, to begin healing. That's worth being grateful for, even in the midst of all the pain. My mother still calls every week. She's moved to a facility closer to us, couldn't stand being so far from Emma after everything that happened. We have dinner with her every Sunday, a new family tradition. She struggles with what Michael did, with reconciling the little boy she raised with the man who groomed and abused his niece. Some days she's angry at him. Some days she's heartbroken. Some days she's both at once. He keeps thinking I should visit him in prison, she told me last month. He's still my son, but then I look at Emma and I think about what he did to her, and I just can't. You don't have to. Emma wouldn't blame you if you did visit him, but you also don't owe him anything right now. He writes to me sometimes, tells me how much he's changed, how much therapy he's doing in prison, how sorry he is. Do you believe him? I want to, but I don't know if I should. That's the thing about Michael. Even now, even after everything, part of me wants to believe he's genuinely remorseful, that he understands the harm he caused, that he's somehow become a better person through consequences and reflection. But I don't know if his remorse is real. And honestly, I don't think it matters. Because even if he's genuinely sorry, even if he's genuinely changed, it doesn't undo what he did. It doesn't give Emma back the year she lost. It doesn't repair our family. Some things can't be fixed. Some betrayals are too deep to heal.
Most days I think so, Emma says. But some days I miss who I was before. The girl who trusted easily, who saw the best in people, who believed in fairy tale romance. You can still see the best in people, I tell her. You just do it with your eyes open now. That's wisdom, not cynicism. Emma leans her head on my shoulder, the way she used to when she was little. Thanks, Mom, for everything. For coming to get me that night, for believing me, for helping me rebuild my life. You don't have to thank me, I say, kissing the top of her head. I'm your mother. It's my job to be there for you. Not every mother would have been, Emma says quietly. I've been in support groups. I've heard stories from other survivors whose families blamed them or didn't believe them or chose the abuser over them. You didn't do that. You chose me." "We'll always choose you," David says firmly. "Always." We sit together as the sun finishes setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Beautiful, despite everything. Maybe even more beautiful because of everything we've survived to get here. "Can I tell you guys something?" Emma asks after a while. "Anything," I say. "I've been thinking about changing my name. Not legally or anything, but going by my middle name instead. Starting fresh with a name that doesn't carry all these memories." Emma's middle name is Grace, Carol Grace Morrison, named after my mother and David's grandmother. "Grace," David tests it out. "I like it." "Do you really?" Emma, Grace, asks. "You wouldn't be sad about not using the name you gave me?" "We gave you both names," I remind her, "and if Grace feels more like who you are now, then that's who you should be. Names are powerful. They should fit." "Grace," she repeats, as if trying it on. "Yeah, I think that's who I want to be. Not Emma, who made terrible mistakes, but Grace, who survived them." "You're both," I say gently. "You're Emma and Grace, the girl who went through something terrible and the woman who came out the other side. You don't have to erase one to be the other." She thinks about this. "Maybe. But for now, I think I'd like people to call me Grace, at least until I figure out how to integrate all the parts of myself." "Grace it is," David says, "and for what it's worth, I think it suits you." Over the next few months, Emma, Grace, settles into her new identity. She introduces herself as Grace to new people, updates her email signature, asks her professors to use that name in class. It's a small change, but it seems to help, like she's drawing a line between who she was and who she's becoming. She also starts volunteering at a domestic violence shelter, using her experience to help other survivors. At first, I worry it's too much too soon, that it will trigger her own trauma. But Grace says it helps. It reminds me that I'm not alone, that what happened to me happens to lots of people, and seeing other survivors heal gives me hope for my own healing. She's right. Working at the shelter seems to give her purpose. She comes alive when she talks about the women she's helping, the children she's playing with, the small ways she can make a difference in people's lives. One evening, about 6 months after she started volunteering, Grace comes home with news. "I've been asked to speak," she says, "at a conference about familial abuse. They want me to tell my story, share what I learned, help people understand how grooming works." "How do you feel about that?" I ask. "Terrified," she admits, "but also like it's something I need to do. My story could help people, could help parents recognize warning signs, could help survivors feel less alone." "Will you use your real name?" David asks. "I haven't decided yet. Part of me wants to stand up publicly and say, 'This happened to me and I survived.' But another part of me is scared of judgment, scared of being defined by this for the rest of my life." "You have time to decide," I say, "and whatever you choose, we support you." Grace does speak at the conference. She uses her real name, Emma Morrison, says it feels important to own her story completely rather than hiding behind anonymity. I go to support her, sit in the audience, while my daughter stands on stage and tells hundreds of strangers about the worst thing that ever happened to her, about how her uncle groomed her, how he isolated and abused her, how she escaped and began to heal. There isn't a dry eye in the room by the time she finishes. Afterward, people line up to talk to her, to thank her for her courage, to share their own stories, to ask for advice. Grace handles it all with remarkable grace, poise and strength, and genuine compassion for each person who approaches her. Watching her, I realize she's going to be okay, more than okay. She's going to take this terrible thing that happened to her and transform it into something meaningful. She's going to help people. She's going to make a difference. She's incredible, David says beside me, watching Grace talk to a young woman who's crying. How did we get so lucky? She's not lucky, I correct. She's strong and brave, and she's done the work to heal. We're lucky to be her parents, David clarifies. That, I agree, we are. Michael gets denied parole. The board cites the severity of his crime, the power imbalance in his relationship with Grace, and her testimony opposing his release. He'll have to serve at least another year before he can apply again. Grace seems relieved when she gets the news. I wasn't ready to know he was out there, she admits. Maybe someday, but not yet. You might never be ready, I tell her, and that's okay too. Do you think about him? Grace asks me. Uncle Mike? It's the first time she's referred to him that way in a long time. Usually she just says Michael or him. Sometimes, I admit, I think about the brother I had before all this, the man I thought he was, and I grieve that person because I realize now he maybe never existed, at least not the way I thought he did. Do you miss him? It's a complicated question. Do I miss the Michael I thought I knew? The devoted uncle, the sensitive artist, the little brother I protected and loved? Yes, but that Michael, if he ever existed, is gone, replaced by the truth of who he really is. I miss who I thought he was, but I don't miss who he actually is. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does, because I feel the same way. As time passes, our new normal just becomes normal. The crisis that defined us for so long fades into the background. Not forgotten, never forgotten, but integrated into who we are rather than consuming us. Grace thrives at university, makes the dean's list, gets accepted into a competitive internship program, starts seriously dating the young man I mentioned, Alex, a computer science major who treats her with careful respect and genuine affection. David and I celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary. We renew our vows in a small ceremony with just Grace and a few close friends. It feels right, acknowledging that we're not the same people who got married 25 years ago, but choosing each other again anyway. My mother's health declines. She passes away peacefully in her sleep 2 years after Michael's trial. At her funeral, I wonder if Michael will be allowed to attend. He's not. Grace specifically requested that he not be granted leave from prison to come. I'm sorry, she tells me afterward. I know he was your brother and her son, but I can't. Don't apologize, I interrupt. You have nothing to apologize for. This was your call to make. After Mom dies, I inherit her house. Going through her things, I find letters Michael had written to her from prison. Dozens of them. She'd kept them all, but never mentioned receiving them. I sit on her bedroom floor reading them, trying to understand the man my brother had become. Some of the letters are manipulative. Poor Michael, misunderstood, punished too harshly for following his heart. Those I throw away immediately. But others seem genuinely remorseful. He writes about the therapy he's doing in prison, about coming to understand how he'd abused his position of trust, about recognizing the harm he'd caused to Grace, to me, to our family. I don't know if the remorse is real or if he's learned to fake it more convincingly. But reading those letters, I feel the first stirring of something that might eventually become forgiveness. Not forgiveness for what he did. That's beyond me, maybe forever. But forgiveness for who he is. Acceptance that people are complicated. That my brother could genuinely love our family and still do something unforgivably harmful. That good and evil aren't always clear categories, but sometimes exist in the same person at the same time. I don't know if I'll ever write back to him. Don't know if I'll ever visit him in prison. Don't know if there's a future where Michael is part of our lives again in any capacity. But I'm not as angry as I used to be. The rage that consumed me for so long has burned down to something quieter. Sadness, maybe. Grief for what was lost. Acceptance of what can never be repaired. Grace asks me about the letters one day. She's found me on the porch, going through them again. "What do they say?" she asks. That he's sorry, that he's trying to change, that he understands what he did wrong. Do you believe him? I don't know. Maybe he believes it, but belief isn't the same as truth. Grace is quiet for a moment. Then, if he gets out someday, if he tries to contact me, I think I'll agree to meet with him. Not to forgive him or reconcile, but to tell him directly how he hurt me, to look him in the eye and make him really see what he did. That's brave, I say. Or stupid, Grace says with a slight smile. Dr. Reeves isn't sure it's a good idea, says I don't owe him closure. You don't, I agree, but if it's something you need for yourself, that's different. I think it might be. I think I need to face him as the person I am now, not the scared teenager he manipulated. I need him to see that I survived him, that I'm stronger than he tried to make me. When the time comes, if you decide to do it, I'll be there with you, if you want. I'd like that, Grace says. But Mom, can I tell you something? Always. I'm not scared of him anymore. I used to be. Even after I left, even after the trial, I was scared that he still had power over me, that he could still manipulate me. But I'm not scared anymore, because I see him clearly now, and he's just a man who made terrible choices. He doesn't have power over me unless I give it to him. I look at my daughter, at Grace, who rose from the ashes of Emma, and I feel overwhelming pride. She didn't just survive, she transformed. She took the worst thing that ever happened to her and used it to become someone stronger, wiser, more compassionate. You're going to change the world, I tell her. I really believe that. Maybe not the whole world, Grace says with a smile, but maybe a few people's worlds. That's enough. 3 years after the trial, Grace graduates from university with honors. David and I sit in the audience as she walks across the stage to accept her diploma, and I think about all the ways this day almost didn't happen. If she'd stayed with Michael, if she'd lost herself completely in that relationship, if she'd never found the courage to leave. But she did leave. She did survive. And now she's here, standing on a stage, ready to begin the next chapter of her life. At the graduation party we throw for her, Alex pulls me aside. I wanted to ask your permission for something, he says nervously. Okay, I say, already suspecting where this is going. I want to propose to Grace. I know we're young and I know she's been through a lot, but I love her and I promise I'll spend the rest of my life treating her with the respect and love she deserves. I study him carefully. He's 23 years old, earnest, genuinely devoted to my daughter. He knows about her past. Grace told him everything early in their relationship, and he's never judged her for it, never made her feel ashamed, never tried to control or manipulate her. You don't need my permission, I tell him. Grace is her own person. She makes her own choices. But if you're asking for my blessing, you have it. His face lights up. Thank you. That means everything. He proposes a month later. Grace says yes. Their wedding is small and beautiful, held in our backyard under string light. Grace wears a simple white dress and carries wildflowers. Alex cries when he sees her walking down the aisle. It's nothing like the fairy tale wedding Emma once imagined, The big venue, the elaborate decorations, the hundreds of guests. But it's perfect for who Grace is now. Intimate, meaningful, surrounded by people who really love her. During the reception, Grace pulls me onto the dance floor. "Thank you, Mom," she says as we sway to the music, "for everything, for saving me, for believing in me, for helping me become who I am." "You saved yourself," I tell her. "You made the call that night. You did the work to heal. You chose to survive." "But I couldn't have done it without you," Grace insists. "Without knowing I had somewhere safe to come back to. That's the gift you gave me. Safety. Home." We dance in silence for a moment. Then Grace says, "I got a letter from Michael last week. He's out on parole." My heart stops. "What?" "He got out 2 weeks ago. He wrote to tell me he's moved to a different state, that he won't try to contact me, that he just wanted me to know so I didn't have to worry about running into him." "How do you feel about that?" I ask carefully. "Relieved," Grace says. "I'm not ready to see him yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. And I'm glad he had the sense to move away." "He wrote to me too," I admit. Asked if I'd ever be willing to talk to him. "Are you?" I think about it. About the brother I lost, about the man he became, about whether anything can ever be salvaged from the wreckage of our relationship. "I don't know," I say honestly. Part of me wants to hear what he has to say now, years later, after prison and therapy and whatever growth he's done. But another part of me thinks some doors should stay closed. You don't have to decide today or ever. You're allowed to just not know. She's right. I don't have to have all the answers. I can sit with the uncertainty and the grief and the complicated feelings and just let them be what they are. "Look at you," I say, smiling at my daughter. "So wise. When did you get so wise?" "When I survived something that should have destroyed me," she says simply. "Turns out trauma either breaks you or teaches you. I chose to let it teach me." The song ends. Grace hugs me tight, then goes to find her new husband. I watch her go, this incredible woman who emerged from that scared teenager who called me from a gas station 3 years ago, and I feel grateful. Grateful that she survived. Grateful that she came home. Grateful that our family, though forever changed, found a way to heal. David appears beside me, slipping his hand into mine. "What are you thinking about?" "How far we've come. How much we've survived." "It's been a hell of a journey," David agrees. "But we made it," I say. "We're here, we're okay, Grace is okay. That's what matters." He kisses my temple. That's what matters. We stand together at the edge of the dance floor, watching our daughter celebrate with friends and family. And I realize something important. The affair that tore us apart didn't destroy us. It tore us apart, yes. It broke us in ways we're still healing from. But it didn't destroy us. We survived. We rebuilt. We found a way forward. And maybe that's what family is. Not the people who never hurt you, but the people who hurt you and you find a way to forgive. Or the people who survive together when someone else hurts one of you. Or the people you choose to keep choosing, even when it would be easier to walk away. I don't know if our family will ever fully heal. I don't know if there will ever be a day when I can think about Michael without feeling some mixture of grief and anger. I don't know if Grace will ever fully escape the shadow of what happened to her. But I know we're trying, and I know we're together, and I know that has to be enough. Because in the end, That's all any of us can do. Survive the things that try to break us and keep choosing to build something better from the pieces. That's what we're doing. That's what we'll keep doing, one day at a time.